Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. 31. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. Chapter 31. Poorly preserved bones. A bone that has never been preserved from an unknown age, and there are intermittent words engraved on it, and someone has used this text to spy on the whole picture of a certain era, and the whereabouts are unknown. After reading the introduction, Meng Qing was stunned. It's just a bone, what is it so divine? With hesitation, he looked at the words on the bone. Even if the system synthesizes, the text above is still very blurry. He even used his soul power to investigate, but the bone was still lifeless. What's going on? Finally, he understood a few words, and from the handwriting, he deduced that one of the three words located on the highest end of the bone looked like Zhen. Meng Qing whispered, remembering all the handwriting he understood in his heart. When he tried to deduce the text above according to the Reiki operation method, he raised his right hand and involuntarily sketched, as if he wanted to describe something. When he wanted to feel it carefully, he found that the feeling was gone again. After a few attempts, that feeling came back again. It happened that Brother Chicken came pacing from behind and lay beside Meng Qing. Meng Qing's heart moved, and the spiritual energy on his hands spontaneously moved, and he actually depicted the portrait of Brother Chicken in the air. Wrong. Soon, Meng Qing denied his idea. This is not a portrait, what he described as too similar. His fingers moved slightly, the portrait actually moved, opened his mouth, and a golden light appeared in it. Immediately afterwards, the portrait seemed to have exhausted all its spiritual energy and dissipated into invisibility. What's going on? Meng Qing was shocked. Brother Chicken tilted his head and couldn't help but stare at him, which was really weird. It's okay to draw out the portrait, but this portrait actually has the means of Brother Chicken and can spit out flames. This can scare people to death. He asked the Queen Ant, but the latter did not understand what was going on. He decided to try again, only this time, he did not face Brother Chicken, who gave birth to spiritual wisdom after all, and Meng Qing's description made it feel hairy in his heart. He took out a spirit stone and tried to trace it, but it was unsuccessful. It wasn't until the afternoon that he finally understood the principle of this technique. Power can only be revealed during combat, in other words, you can trace your opponent's moves to attack them. Of course, this is only Meng Qing's guess. The more he felt that this bone was not simple, thinking that the leader had said that Zhao Fei was injured in the Snow Clan's hometown, then this bone was probably too. If you have the opportunity, you must go to the Snow Tribe. Rumble. The spaceship slammed, and the already broken body shook even more violently at this time. Meng Qing was startled, and stepped forward with a gloomy face. Zhan Yi's body shrunk, and he immediately explained. It's really not me, we have already reached the territory of the Yunxiao sect, and further ahead we are forbidden, we can only walk over. Xuanshou finally stood on his side, and said in a loud voice. Indeed, in the territory of the Yunxiao sect, regardless of the size of the force, you can only go on foot, which is respect for the sect. Everyone disembarked, but in an instant, the drop came. Most of the people who could appear here at this time were people from major forces who came to participate in the Yunxiao sect's disciple assessment. In order not to lose face for their juniors, most of those big forces have sent the most luxurious spaceships to compete with each other. But when the broken spaceship of the Great Zhan Kingdom stopped, it immediately attracted the attention of countless people. It's really too prominent. Not only is there not even a cabin, but the hull is one big hole after another. How shabby it is. Hey, there are also disciples in the gang who participate in the Yunxiao sect disciple assessment. On a large luxury ship nearby, a proud-looking boy came down and mocked when he saw this. Someone nearby exclaimed, "It's Chen Yan, the prince of the Great Chen Kingdom. I heard that this person is just 17 years old this year, but his cultivation is already at the peak of the primordial period, and stepping into the cave sky is just around the corner." Meng Qing frowned slightly. Under the heavens, this person's cultivation was clear to him, and now in the range he could perceive, it was not an exaggeration to say that this young man's background was the first. As for the girl in the rear, the background is slightly worse, but the aura is obviously stronger. No wonder there is proud capital. Hearing this, Zhan Shu and the others looked more or less embarrassed. Daqin Kingdom, this is a country that is much higher than the Daxuan Kingdom in terms of national strength and population, they can't refute it. What nonsense do you do with them? I don't know which small country I came from, so poor that I didn't even have a spaceship, and I could still have 11 places, and it is estimated that this quota was also obtained by improper means. The young man's companion was a young girl named Chen Ning, who looked beautiful, but spoke snarkily, indicating that Meng Qing and the others' quota was irregular. Everyone, please stay in the da. I am a disciple of the Great Zan Kingdom, and I came here on this spaceship because of an attack on the road. The spaceship was damaged, and I had no choice. Zan Yu stepped forward to explain. Chen Yan's smile became even more contemptuous. Attacked. Sure enough, it is a small place, and it doesn't even have the strength to protect its own disciples, so he dares to come to the Yunxiao sect. Forget it, talking to you is simply a waste of this prince's time. Zan Shu and the others looked even more embarrassed. Chen Ning said sarcastically, the dirt buns from the ravines are just to see the world, and when the assessment begins, they will roll back to where they should be, and it is not worth wasting their tongue. Meng Qing only felt annoyed in his heart. Where did these people come from the sense of superiority? As far as he knew, the Great Zan Kingdom and the Great Chen Kingdom were far apart, and the other party shouldn't hate them so much. With the departure of these two people, the various forces who had been watching the excitement around also dispersed. Zan Shu and the others were a little unhappy. They were ridiculed by name when they first came, and they couldn't get angry when they were humiliated in public. How could they experience it as a descendant of a prince or minister? In contrast, the faces of the four grassroots disciples were much more indifferent. Second elder, you will have to fight for breath in your future cultivation. Look at the people of this great Chen kingdom are so arrogant. You, as the highest status among us, must play a pioneering and exemplary role, and you must not let your younger brothers and sisters be wronged. When Zan Yizheng was angry, a mention sounded in his ears. Turned around, but saw Meng Qing's bitter look. Zan Yi covered his chest, depressed and wanted to vomit blood. This one really caught the pigtail and didn't let go. But when he thought that he was about to enter the Yunxiao sect trial land and Meng Qing could only return with him, he was secretly happy in his heart, and he wanted to deal with this matter at the moment. Just as everyone wanted to walk with the crowd, Zan Yu was boarding the boat, as if to turn back. Zan Shu asked, Uncle Zan, are you going back? I was injured in Sha. I can't do anything by staying here. What to do after arriving here? I think the emperor has already told me clearly. I won't talk much in Sha, but this place is not like the Great Zan Kingdom. You must not be reckless. When Zan Yu said this, he focused on Meng Qing a few times. The latter looked at Zan Yi. What about you? Did you hear that? Zan Yi squeezed out a smile. Uncle taught me a lesson. Xuanxi glanced at Meng Qing a few times with some complexity, and finally boarded the broken ship and embarked on the road back. Zan Yi caught a glimpse of Meng Qing, who was still standing here, and was shocked in his heart, and asked almost word by word. Why didn't you leave? Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. 32. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. Chapter 32. Why am I leaving? Meng Qing asked rhetorically, looking at him with a very strange gaze. Zan Yi looked strange, opened his mouth, but finally said nothing. Although those royal disciples also felt strange, they all chose to wait and see. Except for Zan Shu, no one in the field knew Meng Qing's identity for the time being, but she didn't reveal anything to everyone, but seemed to have something on her mind, slightly out of her mind. Walking out from the place where many spaceships docked, everyone couldn't help but be stunned. As the sun sets, a great sun gradually sinks, as if it is close at hand, and the most terrifying thing is that there is a huge palace complex standing in this round sun. Resplendent and carved beams and paintings, people closer to them can't see anything strange, but those in the distance are built by the mountains and rivers. Although they are buildings, they are simply integrated with the landscape, indescribably magical. When they got closer, the crowd was even more shocked. They seemed to be on both sides of the cliff, and there was a sea of clouds in the middle, which was very spectacular. How big a stroke should this be? Meng Qing was surprised. Whether it was Zan Yi or the disciples of other forces, they were shocked. Apparently, this is also the first time they have seen such a landscape. In the crowd, someone whispered. It is said that a long time ago, this was a vast mountain range, and then it was bulldozed by the founding elders of the Yunxiao sect and built into the Yunxiao sect above. Why, I heard that there is a spiritual vein pressed under this mountain, connected to the center of the earth, and cultivated in it all year round. The benefits are simply not too much. Meng Qing's heart was shocked when he heard this, and at the same time he was delighted. There must be incredible treasures in this that could help him become stronger quickly. Soon, the crowd in front automatically divided into several teams. In the distance, someone came from the sky, standing in midair, examining the people below. Meng Qing was shocked in his heart, being able to move in the sky. This is at least a means that only King Wu can have. The background of this Yunxiao sect is so terrifying. There are martial king-level powerhouses in this periphery. King Wu just glanced at them and quickly turned back. Everyone in the Great Zan Kingdom followed behind a group of people, ready to line up for registration. According to their understanding, being able to arrive here does not mean that they can become a disciple of the Yunxiao sect, and now their identity is only a trial, and they need to go through an assessment, and those who pass the assessment are official disciples. Meng Qing frowned slightly. As a disciple of the Golden Elder, he wouldn't have to follow the ass of a group of trial disciples for trials, right? But at this moment, something in the Chenkin bag suddenly trembled. I already know that you came to the Yunxiao sect. You can use this object to find me. There is no need to go through other procedures. The guarding disciple sees the token and naturally knows what to do. An old and loud voice sounded in Meng Qing's ears. It was Shi Yu's voice. Meng Qing was thinking, can he take Zan Shu and the others with him? Rumble. Suddenly, there was a strong sense of oppression from behind, like a boulder pressing on everyone. Meng Qing turned around, but found that it was a group of warriors with unusually tall bodies and strong muscles, but most of them were dressed in animal skins like primitive people. They did not intend to line up, pushing all the way forward, although the forces that were originally in the front of the queue were unwilling, but very consciously walked back and gave up the place in front of them. Soon, it was Meng Qing's turn, and he stood at the end of everyone in the Great Zan Kingdom. The barbarian leader was a little unhappy and glared at Meng Qing, who was motionless. The barbarians in the rear stopped one after another, and seeing that they were stopped before they arrived, they all looked at it. There was a sudden burst of discussion around them. It's barbarians again. These people want to cut in line this year. It's too unreasonable. People are strong. Every year is the first in the assessment. If you don't convince, you can't do it. Which force is that kid? If you stop it like this, you will probably suffer. Some people whispered, although they were very unhappy with the barbarian arrogance, but they were even more afraid of their strength. Meng Qing stood well, while Zan Yi and the others in front of him hesitated, thinking about whether to get out of the way. Boy, which force are you from? Don't have long eyes. Didn't you see everyone else getting out of the way? Brute Star spoke up, although he did not use aura, but the meaning of threat is very obvious. Meng Qing turned around, his expression unchanged. Why should I let it? In the other team, several people from Fangkai Dacheng Guo saw this scene and immediately laughed. Soil buns are soil buns, and they actually have a conflict with them. They really don't want to live. Yes, this year the barbarians led the Barbarian Star. This person entered the peak of the primordial origin a year ago, and in order to enter the Yunxiao sect cultivation, it is said that he has been suppressing his own cultivation, and his combat power is extremely strong. Quote. Now there's a good show. Meng Qing sneered. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Get out of the way quickly. If you want to take this opportunity to gain fame, then you will die a miserable death. At the front of the square, there were several warriors wearing the robes of the disciples of the Yunxiao sect. These people were men and women. The heavenly court was full, and the aura was strong, and no one's cultivation was lower than that of the cave sky. On the far right, a young girl asked, Senior brother, there seems to be a mess ahead. Don't you take care of it? The man did not raise his head. Barbarians. Don't worry, it'll be over in a while. These people are not good to offend. Don't add to the mess. Quote. Oh, the girl nodded, but her eyes were still looking that way. In the field, Meng Qing almost laughed angrily. Gain fame. This one is a little too confident. Under the eyes of the sky, everything in the Barbarian Star was completely displayed, and although the spiritual energy base was strong, it was a lot worse than him. The only thing that stands out is the physical body, but under the difference in aura between the two, these are really not worth mentioning. What are you? Let me gain fame. Really think of yourself as a character. Now, forgive you for being disrespectful to me. Meng Qing sneered and returned all those words. There was a sudden gasping sound around. This kid doesn't want to live, does he? Although the Barbarian Star is the peak of the primordial period, it killed the powerhouse of the early stage of Dongtian half a year ago, and its strength is infinite, which is very terrifying. What's more, there was a king of Wu in their clan who appointed himself to fight with him in the same realm, but he lost, that is King Wu. This kid is finished, I'm afraid he will be killed here today, although he is the peak of the beginning, but the gap is too big. The brute star was suddenly furious, and his fist slammed and smashed forward. For a time, the sonic boom here continued, which attracted everyone's attention. You know, this is the power of pure flesh, terrifying and boundless. Meng Qing gently stretched out his hand, as if he had no strength, and stretched forward. Some people sighed, thinking that Meng Qing was really underestimating the enemy, and this move was enough to bombard a strong person in the same realm. Zhan Shu's small fist pinched the corners of her clothes, looking at the field very nervously. Although she knew that Meng Qing's beast was very powerful, she was still worried that Meng Qing would suffer losses in a simple physical combat. Barbarian star roared lowly, die. Quote. Boom. At the place where the fists collided, there seemed to be a sonic boom, and the aura escaped from there, as if it could not withstand the pressure there. Barbarian Xing was stunned, because the fist he swung out was actually held by Meng Qing. Not only him, but also those spectators around him couldn't react. What was the situation? Meng Qing let go of his hand, and then slammed out, and the aura gathered in the fist point. With only one punch, the whole person of the brute star flew out horizontally, and the arm clicked and was a little deformed. He fell to the ground, kicking up a large cloud of dust. Zhan Shu's small mouth opened into an O shape, and Meng Qing actually blasted the brute star with one punch. It looks like a big earthquake has occurred here, and many people are rubbing their eyes vigorously, thinking that they are dreaming. Bastard, I'm going to kill you. The barbarian star roared low, running the aura. The muscles around his body rumbled, and the fist lingered with the earthy yellow aura, walking forward like a giant beast. His eyes were red, they were arrogant, and they had stabbed heads in the past, but they all succumbed to their fists. But today he was punched in the field he was good at, which was a great shame for him. Only by killing Meng Qing forcefully can he wash away this shame, even if this is in the Yunxiao sect, but he has to do it. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis 33. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. Chapter 33. Meng Qing's expression was indifferent, and when he saw the aura lingering in the barbarian star's fists, his heart immediately moved, and he immediately dispersed the aura in his palm. He remembered the gradeless technique, Zhen, he got from that cave. In the deduction at that time, he only deduced that this technique could trace the opponent, but the limit of what could be traced was not clear. Today, this barbarian star is nothing less than a grindstone sent to the door. If this idea is known by others, it must be called crazy. The angry barbarians are very terrifying, ordinary people will go all out in the face of it, but Meng Qing even has the leisure to experiment with his own techniques. In front of the square, the girl asked a little nervously. Senior brother, do you really have to worry about it? Something doesn't seem right. The man finally looked up, and when he saw the furious brute star, he frowned slightly and said, "It's broken, it won't kill people, right?" Although he said this, he still sat flat and did not mean to get up. Rumble. The brute star walked forward, making the ground tremble gently with each step that fell. He threw his fist several times, and what was shocking was that the fist he swung seemed to condense into substance, smashing forward like a shooting star. Meng Qing opened his heavenly eyes, let out a low roar, outlined his hands in front of him, and his aura roared. Soon, something incredible happened. Meng Qing used aura as a pen, and the air in front of him as a picture scroll, unexpectedly traced one fist shadow after another, and smashed forward. From a distance, it looks like two barbarian stars are at war. What's going on? He was actually copying the tricks of the barbarian star. It's not a simple copy. Even the breath is the same, it's like a mirror image. What's going on? Which clan is this magical power? So powerful, his aura is strong, and if he fights with the same opponent, isn't he in an invincible position? Quote. There was a lot of discussion around them, and they couldn't keep calm. Many of them were from big families, and they prided themselves on being well informed, but they had never seen such tricks. Even Zhan Shu and the others, who were closest to him, were shocked. They had never seen Meng Qing use this trick before. Rumble. The barbarian star's eyes widened, and they were also fists, but Meng Qing blasted out obviously stronger, and actually broke his fists, and all the fist shadows fell on him, causing him to be hit hard. Once again, he was blasted away and fell heavily to the ground. Meng Qing took the initiative to attack. You dare. In the rear, several barbarians who were originally watching the battle were not calm, and they bombarded forward one after another, each using their own means, and the fist shadow and palm wind were continuous. Meng Qing continued to cast. The scroll continued, and the tricks that were coming at him were traced by him, and then all returned. In less than 20 breaths, the barbarians who were rushing towards him lay on the ground wailing. Just as he was about to collect the loot, a cold wind suddenly came from behind him. Meng Qing's eyes suddenly became sharp, and he brazenly beckoned Brother Chicken. Rumble. As soon as the obituary Jinyan came out, the temperature in the field rose sharply. A scream came, and a dog bear covered in fire rolled on the ground, roaring angrily. Oh my God, his spirit beast turned out to be a fourth order. Someone saw Brother Chicken's cultivation and shouted at the moment. After packing up the loot, Meng Qing arrived in front of the barbarian star, flew out with a kick, kicked the latter who was about to get up, and fell to the ground again. You dare. I am a barbarian. If you dare to touch me, no matter where you come from, you will pay the price. If you know the face, extinguish the flames on my beast as soon as possible. Barbarian Star roared lowly. Even if he was defeated, he did not forget to threaten Meng Qing. First summon the beast to sneak up on me, and threaten me if the sneak attack fails. The guts are not small. Meng Qing snatched away his Chenkin bag, and the latter suddenly punched out, wanting to sneak attack. Meng Qing dodged and stepped on his right foot fiercely, making his head come into close contact with the ground. You dare to rob me of my bag? You're dead. Barbarian Star roared, still unconvinced. Meng Qing was not polite in the slightest. His aura sank, and he kicked him fiercely, making his nose blue and face swollen, and the bone of the bridge of his nose was broken. The hearts of everyone were shocked, except for the wailing of the bear. The silence in the venue was terrifying. He quickly stepped forward and made up for it again, and the brute star who had just gotten up flew out again. This time, his entire face was swollen, and only a slit remained in his eyes. This made the people around a little scared. This is really a ruthless stubble. After today's appearance, the barbarian star is considered faceless. Of course, the barbarian is afraid that he will not die. Just as Meng Qing was about to continue to strike, a shout came. And slow. A group of Yunxiao sect practitioners who were cultivating above the cave heaven realm flew over, and when they saw this scene in front of them, they only felt that one head and two big ones. The man Wang Shu from earlier frowned and said, whether this is right or wrong beforehand, quickly stop and put away that flame. It's almost imperative. Although Meng Qing frowned, he also followed the man's words first. A disciple walked up to the dog bear, crouched down to check the dog bear's injuries, and then shook his head slightly. Wang Shu's face sank, and he asked Meng Qing in a low voice. They are all brothers of the same disciple. Why do you want to kill the killer? The beast tamer of the barbarian star has been abolished. Will you compensate him for his loss? Meng Qing only felt funny and asked rhetorically. I hurt the killer. Why don't you ask what happened? These things will naturally be found out in the future. Wantonly and fierce, take them down first. Wang Shu said in a low voice, ignoring 3721 first, intending to take Meng Qing down. This senior brother, it's the barbarians who don't reason to cut in the queue first. Meng Qing is just a legitimate defense, I can testify later. Zhan Shu was anxious, and quickly explained out loud. Wang Shu composed his face. Legitimate defense. This is the Yunxiao sect. I am even a law enforcer. Why didn't we see it? In my opinion, you are also accomplices. Meng Qing instantly understood that this person probably wanted to take him down, and then go to show favor to the barbarians or someone from the Yunxiao sect who was facing the barbarians. It's ridiculous. As a junior brother of the Yunxiao sect, you didn't stand up for the first time when someone fought and committed murder, and when you saw these people injured, you couldn't wait to jump out, and you want to take me down. Is this how you enforce the law for the Yunxiao sect? As soon as these words came out, the expressions of many disciples changed. Many people present saw what happened, although they knew that there were some doorways here, but they didn't think about it carefully. After all, it was the brute star who caused trouble first. But now Wang Shu and the others came up to take Meng Qing, which was inappropriate. Wang Shu smiled coldly. Are you questioning me waiting? Do you think you are now a disciple of my Yunxiao sect? The trial disciples still dare to contradict me and wait. Come, bring the roster, cross out this person's name, etc., check who his entourage is, cross it out. When everyone heard this, their expressions suddenly changed. Because according to the regulations of the Yunxiao sect, these senior brothers in charge of receiving them do have this privilege. Barbarian Xing woke up and roared angrily. Miscellaneous, you return my Chenkin bag. Tell me which force you come from, I must destroy your force. Wang Shu looked indifferent. You don't have to be impatient, I'm here today, he can't take anything with him. Meng Qing sneered. Such a big official prestige. Xiao Yixing does not change his name or his surname, Meng Qing, from the Great Zan Kingdom. Wang Shu frowned. He felt that this name was a little familiar, as if he had heard it somewhere. Seeing the female disciple behind him rummaging through the pages, he couldn't help but feel annoyed in his heart, so he took the roster himself, skillfully turned to one of the pages, looked up after a while, and said coldly. You trick me. The Great Zan Kingdom does not have the name Meng Qing this year, and so on. There are only 10 places on this, why do you have 11? As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar around them. And that barbarian star even seemed to grasp the life-saving straw, and said in a low voice. This person has evil intentions, wants to blend into the Yunxiao sect and plot against him, and also asks all senior brothers to take him down. And the disciples of the Great Chen Kingdom also mended the knife at the same time. Senior brothers and sisters, we have seen the spaceship they are riding on when we came, it is very shabby, no different from robbers, I suggest you check the source of their quota, I suspect that these people are intentional to sabotage. In an instant, Meng Qing and the others became the target of everyone, and the situation was extremely dangerous. Zan Shu and the others' faces turned pale, how could they not expect such a thing to happen at this juncture? Wang Shu made a palm move, and several Cave Heaven Realm powerhouses standing behind him stepped forward one after another, each exuding a cold aura, wanting to capture them. Meng Qing looked indifferent, as if he was out of the way to all this, and only listened to him ask Wang Shu. I said, you want to cross out my name, are you trying to deprive me of my disciple status? Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis 34. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. Chapter 34. Because of the great movement here, the disciples who had been lining up around surrounded one after another. When many people saw that the barbarian who had always been arrogant had suffered a loss, their expressions became wonderful, but when they learned that Meng Qing was from the Great Zan Kingdom, they shook their heads. The barbarians are strong, and there are strong warriors in the clan. This Wang Shu will definitely take care of the face of this clan, and will not easily spare Meng Qing and others. I not only want to cross out your names, but also arrest you and wait, but there is no quota but dare to come to my Yunxiao sect, this is a vegetable market, what cats and dogs can come? Wang Shu's expression was grim, and he had already made up his mind. The powerhouses of the Yunxiao sect who were originally waiting here stepped forward one after another, instantly surrounding Meng Qing and the others. Just as they were about to make a move, Meng Qing lightly took out a token and said lightly. If you want to deprive me of my disciple status, I'm afraid you have to ask this token first if it agrees. The token is brilliant, the top is contaminated with verve, and a terrifying aura spreads on it, which makes people dare not underestimate. The breath on this token is very terrifying, and it faintly resonates with this mountain and earth, which cannot be wrong. Wang Shu's expression suddenly changed from cold to unbelievable, and a few words were squeezed out of his throat. This is impossible, this is the identity token of the Golden Elder. How could you have this? He suddenly felt like the sky was falling. Golden Elder. Every statue in the Yunxiao sect is a behemoth, an absolute giant. Ordinary disciples may not be able to see each other during the entire cultivation period. But Meng Qing actually held this token. Thinking of this, Wang Shu sweated coldly. Everyone in the barbarians was stunned. Especially the brute star. He never expected that this person who would definitely die today in his opinion would have such a terrifying origin. Golden Elder. This is the heritage of every sect, the status is extremely high, and he is a person who is willing to establish good relations with the lords of the major forces. If the barbarian patriarch knew what happened today, he would definitely beat him to death. Chen Yan snorted, and was dropped to the ground by a folding fan he took out of his sleeve robe, and he was also calmed. Zan Shu and the others looked the same. Zhan Yi's face was gloomy, and the moment he saw this token, he knew Meng Qing's identity. It can't be wrong, this must be the same person who made an uproar in Meng domain before and was accepted as a disciple by the elders of the Yunxiao sect. Previously, he always believed that such geniuses must be personable and polite and decent between talking and laughing, so even if Meng Qing was strong and followed all the way here, he didn't think of the two together. Finally, someone in the crowd was surprised. I heard that some time ago, Elder Yunxiao sect she accepted a disciple in a remote place. It seems to be named Meng Qing. It seems that it is him. It is no wonder that he can fight one family by one. Everyone looked at it, but found that this was a boy about 14 or 15 years old, with a beautiful appearance, watery eyes, and a very pure look. This is Shu Chen, from the Shu clan. This force is only stronger than the barbarians, and he is the best in this generation of the clan. In the field, Meng Qing looked at Wang Shu and a group of disciples who were almost petrified, and asked with a light smile. Come on, cross out the name of my weight. I would like to see how you can deprive me of the disciple status of waiting. The corners of Wang Shu's mouth tugged, and he quickly smiled and said, Senior brother, this is all a misunderstanding. I don't know if it's you, the elder specially instructed. If you come, you don't need to register, just go in. A moment ago, Wang Shu also claimed to be the enforcer of the Yunxiao sect, claiming to disqualify Meng Qing's disciple, but now he came up and called senior brother, and the speed of this face change made people embarrassed. Meng Qing glanced at him, and was about to say something more, when the latter stepped forward and whispered in an intimate manner that made his scalp tingle. Senior brother Meng, today's fact is that there are no beads under the eyes. I did something wrong before, and I ask senior brother's forgiveness. He was stuffed into a bulging bag in his robe. Without him, the status of Elder Jinzi's disciple was extremely high, and in a sense, he could even perform some of Elder Jinzi's duties. And Wang Shu only offended Meng Qing and the others to death, although the latter had just visited the teacher, but in case he found fault later, Wang Shu couldn't eat and go. Losing face is nothing, the key is not to lose your life. Meng Qing smiled, weighed it, and then said, Junior brother, this is not right. Don't apologize to me alone. These junior brothers and sisters behind me have also suffered the calamity of arrogance. Don't you have anything to say? The corner of Wang Shu's mouth tugged. He suddenly gritted his teeth, stuffed a Chenkin bag again, and said, What senior brother taught is that junior brothers and sisters, as senior brothers, they failed to find out the situation, so that you have been wronged. I really can't help it. I apologize to you. Meng Qing turned around and patted Wang Shu's shoulder heavily. Junior brother, from the first time I saw it, I knew that you could do it. You can achieve great things. Wang Shu repeatedly said yes. The people around were surprised for a while, and they all felt Wang Shu's thick skin in their hearts. As for the brute star, it was completely left aside, and it was not to advance or retreat, and it was unspeakable embarrassment. Soon, the spearhead pointed at him. Fang Kai, you have also seen that these barbarian people are unreasonable, not only cut in the queue without saying anything, but also attack me, almost beating me into serious injury. Junior brother, as a law enforcer, don't you punish these people? When everyone around heard this, they all showed a different color. They looked at Meng Qing who was intact, and then at the barbarian people who were beaten like pigs' heads and ransacked, and they couldn't help shrinking their necks. The corners of Wang Shu's mouth tugged, the topic changed, and he shouted to the disciples around him. Take down the barbarian people and wait for them to fall. Barbarian Xing said angrily. The surname Wang, you dare. Quote. But what awaits him is ropes and or a bondage. Immediately afterwards, under the careful service of Wang Shu and others, the group stepped over everyone, and without even registering, they directly crossed the cloud and went to the other side. Wang Shu placed Xuanshu and the others and took Meng Qing alone, saying that Shi Yu had an order to let him meet him quickly once Meng Qing arrived. Along the way, Wang Shu was very enthusiastic and completely acted as a tour guide, constantly introducing the landscape of the Yunxiao sect for Meng Qing. This made some people who were familiar with him look sideways. A few people wanted to joke, but when they saw Meng Qing holding a golden token in his hand, they immediately walked away in silence. For half an hour, Meng Qing finally arrived at a place where mountains were hidden. Among them, the clouds are misty, and the front seems to be in a fog, and the entrance and specific landscape cannot be seen. The Queen of Ants reminded, saying that there were several auras that were terrifyingly powerful. Wang Shu looked extremely respectful, and said in a low voice, Senior brother Meng, Elder Shi's residence is in it, I can't approach it at will, you can go in. After saying this, he stopped talking, his eyes flickering, and there was a look of longing in them. Meng Qing understood and chuckled. If you make a mistake, you have to pay the price. Since the junior brother has already paid the price, then I will naturally reveal it later, and I don't think brother Wang did it intentionally. Wang Shu was full of gratitude, couldn't stop thanking him, and finally let Meng Qing enter the mountain, saying that it was not good to let the elder wait too long. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. 35. Fantasy. My mythical beasts all rely on synthesis. Chapter 35. Different from the structure of the thatched huts in Meng Qing's imagination, there are holes in these mountains. Breathe gently, and roughly estimate that the concentration of spiritual energy here is at least 3 times that of the outside world. Crossing a path sandwiched between 2 high mountains, he followed the instructions of the token to a small valley within a distance. Entering the valley, it was suddenly cheerful, and the aura was as rich as smoke, obscuring his vision. The soul power was released, and Meng Qing saw the scenery. This was once a small valley attached to a large mountain range, which was hollowed out in the middle and became the residence of Shi Yu. In the cave, there were some precious elixirs planted on the outermost side, exuding a burst of strange fragrance, and at a casual glance, Meng Qing couldn't help but be stunned. Those elixirs seemed to give birth to spiritual intelligence, showing emotions such as joy, anger and sorrow like human beings. Medicine King. Elixirs can be divided into 1 to 5 orders according to their quality, and those beyond the 5th order are called Medicine Kings. Meng Qing looked at it and couldn't help but feel a little gluttonous. When I turned my gaze, the space on the right turned out to be several stone platforms that were separated, smoky and ethereal, and the points of light were floating, and it was not an ordinary product at a glance. Meng Qing quietly opened his heavenly eyes, wanting to see clearly what was here. A slight cough came from the front. Meng Qing suddenly stood up and looked ahead. Shi Yu was sitting on a futon on the edge of the stone table in front of him, and he was looking at him with a smile at this time. The disciple has seen the master. Meng Qing's etiquette was in place, and when Yu Guang caught a glimpse of Shi Yu, he couldn't help but be stunned in his heart. He always felt that the latter's gaze was full of warning, as if he was not allowed to make an idea about those elixirs. Just came, the old man noticed some movement and clashed with the kid outside. Shi Yu asked casually. Meng Qing said seriously, Master Venerable doesn't need to worry, the disciple has already solved it by himself. Shi Yu nodded slightly, and then asked, the old man thought you would come alone, why did you follow Da Shuangguo and the others? Meng Qing did not hide it, and roughly explained what happened in the royal city. Shi Yu nodded after listening, and then said, although you are strong now, you have not faced all the people, the barbarians are strong, but compared with those few people back then, there is nothing surprising, although you defeated them, you must not be complacent. Meng Qing nodded and listened to the teachings. The barbarians will report it, you hurt the barbarian star, I'm afraid those people won't give up, they don't dare to mess around on the surface, but in the Yunxiao sect, the master will not protect you. Shi Yu said again. What do you mean? Meng Qing looked shocked, looked up at his master, and then said. Master, did you just say that you didn't care about me? What if I get killed by the barbarians? My father is still waiting for me to return in the Great Zan Kingdom. Shi Yu pointed slightly, and said mercilessly. Your 2 taming beasts are very special. Meng Qing suddenly closed his mouth, he knew that with Shi Yu's strength and vision, he must have seen something. But soon, he glanced around a few times, and then said, Master, you still need to be hard to strike iron, relying on beasts is not that thing after all, I just arrived at the division gate and clashed with outsiders, you see. Shi Yu suddenly had a headache, what happened in the square he saw clearly. Meng Qing ransacked Barbarian Xing and others, plus took Wang Shu's treasure, now his net worth is not cheap. Although he thought so, he still made a move, and a purple plant flew with a few red vermilion fruits at the branch. 4th order elixir. Meng Qing accepted it when he saw it, and asked again at the same time, Master, where are the senior brothers and sisters now? Take advantage of the fact that I am close to them now, so that if I am bullied, I can still move the soldiers. He said this righteously, as if moving the rescuers was not a shame, but a glory. Shi Yu shook his head. I haven't accepted an apprentice for many years, you are a big disciple. Meng Qing's face suddenly collapsed, isn't it? But soon, he was relieved, and when they met in Meng domain, the former did say something similar. Then, Meng Qing wanted to ask for some more benefits, but they were all refused, or Shi Yu told him that there were all these in the Yunxiao sect, and he could get them himself if he wanted to. In the end, he was summoned forward and sat face to face with Shi Yu. The moment he sat on the futon, Meng Qing only felt that his spiritual heart was clear, his body became light, his spiritual airflow accelerated, and even his qi and blood and soul power were much stronger. He was amazed that he had never seen anything like it before. This is something made by picking 100 years of grass, and sitting on it and cultivating can be twice as effective with half the effort. Shi Yu explained. Meng Qing's heart was fiery, but when he looked up, he found that Shi Yu had poured a cup of tea for him. Picked up the teacup and drank it like Shi Yu. At first there was no taste, but later, the refreshing fragrance filled the lips and teeth, like an elf dancing. What made him feel most incredible was that the aura in his body seemed to be being pulled and grew again. He can break through the cave realm at any time. Shi Yu seemed to feel something, and slowly said, "Do you know what Dongtian is?" Meng Qing shook his head. The cave heaven realm means to open up a cave heaven in the body, with the spiritual energy as the foundation. The deeper the foundation, the more the cave heaven will be opened, and the stronger the foundation. Based on the 3-hole heaven, below 3 is called a waste, and above the 7-hole heaven is a wizard. Shi Yu said a few words to explain the mystery of this for him. How many holes can be opened up at most? Meng Qing asked. He suddenly became curious about this matter, and guessed that with his current background, at least 7 could be opened. Shi Yu glared at him. 10. Now the disciples of the Yunxiao sect have 10 cave heaven powerhouses. Up to 8, this is already a genius, the future is limitless, be a master. Shi Yu said. What about you, master? Meng Qing asked again. Not enough teeth, not enough teeth, not mentioning it, they all abandoned their cultivation when they were young, and they regretted it in the future, but it was too late. Shi Yu suddenly sighed, his words were full of regret, and he looked pained. Meng Qing comforted. Master, don't worry, it's not too late to start cultivating hard now, but you have to talk to me to the bottom, so that I have a good idea in my heart. Shi Yu glanced at him. 8. Quote, Meng Qing. This is not said, another Versailles. Co-authored that you just boasted about the people of the 8 cave heavens, it turned out that you were boasting about yourself in disguise. Meng Qing still wanted to comfort him, and after a long time, the clown was actually myself. At the same time, Meng Qing also attached importance to this. The Yunxiao sect gathered all the young geniuses of the major forces, but even if they were all only 8 at most, it fully explained the difficulties. Before Meng Qing left, he was immortal about the tea and futon thief, but Shi Yu made it clear that he didn't think about it. If it weren't for Meng Qing being his disciple, there would be absolutely no chance of contact. He had to give up, and then, Shi Yu suddenly said. There is another thing, there will be an assessment for trial disciples in 3 days, that is carried out in a small world, where there is a creature called the Demon King Ant. Their blood can be a holy product to improve physical fitness, you can try it. Meng Qing nodded. He was a disciple of Elder Jinzi. It was reasonable to say that he did not need to enter it for the assessment again, but now it seemed that it was still very necessary to take a trip. On the way back, he asked the Queen Ant how much he knew about the Demon King Ant, but the Queen's answer shocked him a little. Please like and subscribe.